Korean hip-hop star Tablo was huge, a major success in Korea, breaking through in the US and globally.
And then an internet rumor exploded into an international obsession.
Who is Tablo? And can we trust anything he says? We're previewing Authentic, the story of Tablo.
That's on this episode of So Much Crime.
So little time. Welcome to So Much Crime, So Little Time. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Dee. And in this episode, we'll introduce you to Authentic, the story of Tablo, from Vice and iHeart Podcast Network.
If you haven't listened to the story of Tablo, that is great. This is one of our preview episodes.
Here we only discuss episode 1 and introduce you to the series. There's no spoilers for what's to come.
You'll also find a link to the series in our show notes.
In our next episode, we'll discuss the whole series. But right now, we just want to decide if this is a crime that's worth your time.
All right, Dee, before we get to the story, I think we should hop in the time machine.
Doo-doo. Okay, Jeff. A crime happened, or we're going to place it on May 2010, which is when the scandal broke. Or so says the internet. But can we believe anything that the internet says? Well, let's find out as we dive into it later.
In May of 2010, the largest news story that I could find in all of Ireland was that a certain stadium opened in Dublin. Do you know what stadium it was?
I presume it was the Aviva.
It was the Aviva Stadium.
Should be called... It's actually called Lansdowne Road, but whatever.
Right. That was my first question, is what is it also known as? That was an easy one. All right, I have a couple more questions.
Lansdowne Road is what it was called before the Aviva got their hands on it.
All right. Do you know? So this new stadium was opened in May of 2010. The original stadium, the first stadium on that site, when was that built?
1931.
It's close, but not actually that close. Older, much older.
Like in the 1900s?
No.
In the 1800s, really?
Yeah.
1886.
You're pretty close. 1872.
1886 is when the GA was established. That's why. Anyway, okay.
So this is known, I think, primarily as a rugby stadium, although there's lots of different things that happen here.
Rugby and soccer are played there, but we're better at rugby.
Okay.
So.
But there have been some big concerts there. And I looked up the biggest concerts there. And can you name any of the top 3 concerts in terms of attendance that have happened since the stadium opened in 2010?
Robbie Williams.
Robbie Williams is on the list, but not top 3.
Ooh, okay. Let me think. Because do you know why this is hard? I just want to give you some context. We've got a much bigger stadium in Croke Park that has like 80,000. So a lot of the big headline acts play there, not here.
Do you want a clue?
Yeah.
The top 3 acts, one is Irish, one is American, and one I actually don't know. That last part of that clue wasn't very helpful.
Great, that's a really helpful hint. One is Irish.
It's an Irish.
I mean, Westlife?
Yeah, Westlife.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, you see, they would have played Aviva and then they were like, wait a second. It's way better if we play Croke Park.
This was the Wild Dreams tour in July of 2022. So,
in July of 2022?
They played 2 dates there, yeah.
I didn't go to that one.
I'm sorry.
I didn't go to that one. I've been to many of their other gigs. I was here.
Do you want me to tell you the other people?
No.
Okay.
Can I have a moment?
Sure.
American is next.
Sure.
Taylor Swift?
Actually, yes. Taylor Swift in June of 2024, the Eras Tour. 150,000 people over 3 dates.
Yeah, so sad I missed that one. Okay. And what's the other one? Girls Aloud?
It's Michael Bublé.
Oh, I think I went to that one.
In September of 2010,
anyway,
the Crazy Love Tour. 96,000 people.
Okay, I'm going to look at the top 5 movies in and around May of 2010. Before we start, put me, like, in your life, your eldest son was born?
Both children were born.
Both children were born.
They were quite small, though.
Oh, yeah. I was doing bad maths there. Okay, cool. Both children were born, so you're in the chaos of having young kids.
Yep.
Can you put a guess on any of the top 5 movies that were released in around May 2010.
My life was a bit of a blur in terms of pop culture then.
Can't imagine.
If there are kids' movies, I probably saw them, but I couldn't tell you what came out when.
Alrighty. That is helpful. Okay, we're going to go from the least or the lowest one on the rank. And we're going to go up.
Okay.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I am going to read the description and see how many words it takes you to figure it out.
Okay. I'm ready.
The spectre of a disfigured man haunts the children of the parents who murdered him, stalking and killing them in their dreams.
Wait, this is a horror movie.
Apparently so.
Oh, I don't see any horror movies. The Spectre
15.7 million on its first day.
of a Disfigured Man.
That's a lot.
Wait, Disfigured Man, that's like, well, this is too late for like a Freddy Krueger movie, but that sounds like a Freddy Krueger kind of movie. It's not, though. Those all came out a long time ago. I have no idea what this is.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
That's a Freddy Krueger movie.
I don't know.
Okay.
Anyway.
I knew it was Freddy Krueger, so I get half a point.
Sure. If that's what it takes for you to feel good about yourself, that's totally fine. Okay, next one. While wrestling with the pressures of life, love, and work in blank, Miranda and Charlotte join Samantha for a trip
it's Sex
to
and
Abu
the City.
Dhabi.
2?
Indeed.
Okay.
Indeed. Did you see this movie?
No. Did you?
Did you see number 1?
No.
I actually haven't seen number 2.
Okay.
See number 1. It's pretty funny. Okay. 2 for 2.
Why did you think I would have seen that movie?
I don't know. In the middle of parenting of young kids, sometimes you have to relent and allow the other person to choose the movie. I don't know if your wife likes
She does not.
that kind of movie. Okay. Alrighty. Next one. We're heading to 12th century England. A man and his band of insert word.
Is it a word you don't know how to
should've-
say, or is it in the title?
I don't know how to say. Marauders?
Marauders?
Sure. Confront corruption in a local village and lead an uprising against the crown that will forever alter the balance of world power.
In the
I
12th
wish that
century?
was true.
12th century. This was the third biggest movie of May 2010.
Mhm. Russell Crowe is in it. You can see him there.
Russell
His
Crowe.
bow and arrow.
Is it a Robin Hood movie?
Indeed. It's called Robin Hood.
I have no memory of this movie. Russell Crowe is Robin Hood?
I mean, it looks like him from the picture. Come
Right.
here. Tell me this word now. Marauders.
Marauders. Yeah, like
Yeah.
people who
Marauders.
come in and rob and steal. Like pirates are
Like-
marauders. It's not a common word, but it's a word.
Thieves.
Yes.
Why couldn't you just say thieves?
Also, I'm 0 for 3 in terms of having seen these movies.
Yeah. You had 2 young kids. This is what happens anytime we discuss movies. I'm like, I don't know. Okay. Have seen this one. Rumpelstiltskin tricks a midlife crisis burdened blank into allowing him to be erased from existence and cast in a dark alternate timeline where Rumpelstiltskin rules supreme.
Is this a Shrek movie?
It is a Shrek movie.
Which Shrek movie is it? I'm going to guess 3? 4?
There is no number on this.
Oh,
Let me check.
it's not 1.
Oh yeah, it's 4 technically.
Okay. Well, I feel like partial credit for that one.
Sure. Okay. With the world now aware of his identity as blank,
Spider-Man.
blank must contend with both his declining health and a vengeful madman with ties to his father's legacy.
Iron Man. It's a Marvel movie. Is it Iron Man
I'm
2?
not sure. Indeed it is. Jesus.
I saw this
You did
movie.
very well there.
Okay. Well, there we go.
Way! You saw the top grossing one.
Okay. I want to start with a song that was a number 1 hit in Ireland in May of 2010.
Woo!
It got to number 3 on the US Billboard chart, but because we're not doing a specific day, we're doing a whole month. I just kind of looked at several different weeks to see, okay, which of these songs do I feel like was just at the top of the charts for the whole month? And this is the one that I think was there the longest. I'm going to just do the lyrics. See how fast you can get this. Your lipstick stains on.
Pause. Oh, fuck, I know this one. Give me 2 more words.
Your lipstick stains on the front.
Pause. Oh, fuck, I know this one.
Lobe of my left side brains. I knew I wouldn't forget you, and so I went and let you blow my mind. You sweet moonbeam, the smell of you in every single dream I dream.
Pause.
I know you know this song.
On the front of my left side brain, so I went and let you blow my mind. Soul Sister. Hey, Soul Sister.
That's
Train?
Yeah, there it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then lastly,
I knew that. I felt
it was
the pressure.
There. Yeah.
You're under pressure, and I'm stressed out.
You got it. You got
it's
there.
your fault, basically. That is our time machine for today. That was fun. Before we jump into today's episode, this episode is a lot about what we've recently come to know as like cancel culture. And I think what happens is people get so wrapped up in their phones. And sometimes I just wonder if people spent more time on their phones doing something worthwhile, something that would fill their heart with joy, something that would spread love and support, small shows, they'd feel better. We'd feel better. Like if they went to patreon.com/so much crime, so little time, they'd find longer time machines, early release episodes, bonus content, my personal favorite, the outtakes. You don't know how many burps Jeff has to cut within our shows that we record together. And also you get to support the show. So the next time you're jumping on to read up on the newest celebrity who's being cancelled, take a moment, pause and say, is this good for me? Would it be better for me to go to patreon.com/so much crime, so little time, and fill my heart with joy in that way? Thank you so much.
All right, Dee, let's talk about what this podcast is all about. So this came out in 2022. The host is Dexter Thomas Jr., and I went down a bit of a rabbit hole trying to figure out who this guy is because I couldn't find a bio on him. I found his Instagram, spoken around, and then I ended up stumbling across a article from the University of California, Riverside, where he is an alumni of UC Riverside, graduated in 2006, and he was featured in their 40 Under 40 in their the UCR magazine. And a cool thing that he did was he apparently was really into Japanese hip hop, even though we're going to do a story on Korean hip hop. But anyway, he had hundreds of CDs and magazines from when he studied abroad in Japan, and he donated them to the UCR library. So at University of California, Riverside, you can visit the Dexter Thomas Jr. collection of hip hop at the Tomas Rivera Library. So that's a random fact about our host. And yeah. Anyway, so this podcast has 8 episodes. There's a couple of bonus episodes as well. And each episode, if you were to take out the plentiful ads, I think are about 30 to 40 minutes long. What is the story in episode 1, Dee?
So we hear a little about the scandal we'll presumably get to later. A major Korean hip-hop star, Tablo, started getting hounded by rumours in 2010. The rumours included he didn't really go to Stanford. He had ties to the Illuminati. He had connections and power over the Korean and US presidents. In general, nothing he said could be trusted. Then we hear about his childhood. He was born in Korea. He then moved to Canada. His parents pressured him and his siblings to go to top Ivy League schools. He ended up in Stanford and then broke into the hip hop scene. So a different synopsis than we usually start with in these preview episodes. Jeff, let's jump into our thoughts. My first note is, what WTF is going on? Like, what is this that you have brought to my life? But before I get to that, I'd really like to know, Did you know anything about Korea, like K-pop? I know this isn't K-pop. Don't come after me, K-poppers. Or like Korean hip hop, or like Korean popular culture. Was this something do you know much about this before going in? Or is it just me that's going in as blind as a bat? I think bats have good eyesight, but I'm going to say blind as a bat. Are bats blind?
They use sonar so I think that's why they say that about bats. But I don't actually know.
Your face did so many. Okay.
That was an episode unto itself. I can give
bats are not blind. Okay. Sorry.
I can give the nerdiest possible answer to this question. I have read.
Is this about the bats, or is this about
my knowledge of Korean hip hop? My knowledge of Korean pop culture is limited to reading a couple of novels about Korea, as well as a couple of nonfiction books about like North Korean defectors and things like that over the last few years. And I know of BTS. That's K-pop. That's not hip hop, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can I name a song? No. We heard some of Tablo's
Are you into
music.
any like the K-drams?
Oh,
the Korean
no,
dramas?
but I have sat there while some of them were on in my home. And I have watched a couple in part sort of while not fully paying attention. How about you? Have you watched any of those?
Nope. I know nothing. I really am very confused. I don't understand what's going on.
Okay. So we've set the table that we are both completely ignorant of what we're about to talk about. Great. Love that.
Yeah. A lot of my notes are just like, I'm just so confused. And I don't think it's a case that I'm necessarily saying I don't think the podcast episode was good. But me, as someone who knows nothing about this genre, I'm just confused. We start hearing about the fact that there was these rumors and the Tablo was like hounded, and then we pivot to hear his like start of his story and his life. But I'm like, I didn't hear enough about what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, how far did he fall? How bad were these rumors? Like, yeah, he didn't go to Stanford. Like, okay, cool, whatever. He's part of the Illuminati, and he has like ties, and not even ties, but control over some of the world leaders. He bribed the FBI. I mean, what?
Okay. So I hear you. Are you aware of, and this was before either of us was born, just to be clear, I was not alive then, in the 1960s when the Beatles were huge and like the peak of Beatlemania, and people were making up all these stories like Paul is dead, and there's these, like, if you play the records backwards, there's these messages and all of that stuff that was like consuming people at the time. Are you familiar with any of that stuff?
I mean, I've heard about it. Yeah.
Okay.
Not like overly familiar with it, but
that was sort of my anchoring point for this story of like why this even matters, like why anyone would care whether this guy went to Stanford or not, or like if he's telling the truth. Like, because on the surface it's like, okay, he's a pop star, he's a hip hop star. Who cares if he went to Stanford? Like, why does that matter? But then I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of the huge fans. I mean, this group he was part of this group called Epik High. In 2016, they played Coachella. They were the first Korean act to play Coachella. It was a big deal, right? Like they weren't just popular in Korea. They really broke through and were huge stars. Just not part of the music scene that I'm aware of. Although, to be fair, most of the music in the 2010s didn't really get on my radar. So I don't think
not OMG. No, wasn't your top played song of the year. Yeah, no, I get that. And, you know, obviously great that a band can break through. I mean, to play Coachella, like, is obviously huge. And if you're the first like Korean band to play, that's amazing. And it's great for the country. And I think it's always a door, like it's like a door for other people to go through and like experience more of the culture, not just the music itself. I think it's great. That's fantastic. Delighted for us. I don't understand why people care. I don't understand where this podcast is going. What's the crime here? Like, is he scamming? Is that the whole thing? Or was it just someone who was on an anonymous internet forum, started this lie, and it spiraled out of control?
Two things about that. one, I feel like this may be, and I don't know, but maybe this is going to be one of those stories. And I think it's alluded to in this first episode about 2010 was sort of a specific time that seems like a century ago in terms of the internet. And that this was sort of one of those first times of sort of the internet all deciding collectively that we're going to make up this truth. Maybe make it up, or maybe it is true. But supposing they're making it up, and just suddenly, the sort of groupthink hive mind of a certain segment of the internet, which now is just sort of pervasive and everywhere. Nothing is true anywhere on the internet. But then I feel like it was a little bit different. So it may be a story about that. But the other thing I think this may be a story about is just this. It's just sort of unusual. Like, this is a story like I've never really heard before. Like, there's the element of being an immigrant from Korea coming to, well, first to Canada, but then to the US and trying to make it and become popular. And he's, sort of going against what his parents wanted for him to do. Like, they wanted him to be, a doctor or a lawyer or a Nobel Prize winner.
Nobel Prize. That was so funny. I love when the producer, I can't remember which person that was connected to the podcast, chimed in and was like, "That's the same list that my parents gave me."
Yeah. Sort of that stereotypical expectation of the parents, as well as the very conservative Christian parents who the last thing they want for their son is for him to be a hip hop star. Sort of this style of music that they associate with devil music. I don't know that there's actually going to be a real crime here, other than this is maybe but the other thing I wanted to say was,
is this your way of bringing a non-crime podcast into our show? Is just throw it in there and be like, "No, D, there's a crime coming." Actually, JK, there's not.
Every once in a while. Okay. The band teacher went to some dark places. So we need to counter program sometimes. But the other thing I wanted to say was, if it's true that he's lying,
mm-hmm.
then everything we heard in this first story is a lie. Because we heard this whole story about him growing up, going to Stanford, graduating, which is the main thing we're told is thought to be a lie. So, but we're getting the story from him.
And this is one of the questions I think I had for you, was a lot of the story, first of all, I thought didn't make sense. Second of all, there were just too many holes. If this was laying the foundation to the rest of the story, I have questions. This should have been more thorough. For example, there's they speak about how his dad couldn't get, I think they said a great job.
Yeah.
Or a well-paying job, but his mother owned a successful hair salon back in South Korea. And so that's how they were able to survive. But both his older siblings get into, and they're in Canada at this point, they get into Brown and
I think Cornell.
I don't know if we
maybe another Ivy.
2 Ivy League schools. How do you afford that with not a great job and a hair salon
they weren't paying necessarily. Some of these schools, if you don't have the money, they give you a free ride. Like
a scholarship.
Yeah.
But this family have just come to Canada. The likelihood of both of their kids getting scholarships while they're in Canada to go to these Ivy League schools in America. Is this not just even if it is look, this happens, why not mention it? I don't know. Again, I'm coming in with no context here, and surely any podcast first episode, you assume that none of your listeners have context.
The thing that I think seems most improbable is, and this actually resonated with me because they move out of Korea and his older brother has 2 years basically to learn English, and he's he's forced to read the dictionary. He's hallucinating, falling asleep reading the dictionary. And this is not an apples to apples comparison, what I'm about to say. I want to be clear about that. But I remember, so I'm the youngest of 3, like Tablo, did not become a giant Korean hip hop star. I don't know where I went wrong.
Jeffo.
But I remember when
Godfo?
We moved across the country when my brother had 2 years left in high school. And in hindsight, it's crazy what he did in those last 2 years. He went from his whole life being in basically in Wisconsin to moving to upstate New York. And then he ended up being the salutatorian. It's not the valedictorian, but the second in his class. He met the woman who he ended up marrying and is still married to now. And like all these things happened to him in that 2-year span. He already knew English and he went to a school where he still could talk in English. So no, but still, like, just this is a much more extreme version of that. Yeah, I would like to know more about that brother, that older brother, and how he managed to go in 2 years learning English, getting into an Ivy, going to that Ivy. Yeah, what's his story?
And then Tablo gets put into this boarding school and like basically gets asked to leave, but then he's brought back to Korea, but then he ends up in Stanford. I'm like, what?
Yeah,
And then there's this random story about his first day in school in Canada that just doesn't make any sense. Like, if they want to pin you up against a tree and beat you up because you're from somewhere different, they're going to do it anyway. Like, why would they put stuff in your pocket in order to do that? I just didn't understand that. And I couldn't tell if the confusion was down to the podcast production, or is this a way of them showing the confusion of the storyteller, of Tablo himself, that his stories are so off the wall and they never end anywhere and they just like jump from place to place, that they're trying to replicate that in this first episode.
It's funny because some of those things didn't actually jump out to me, but now that you say them, they do. But the one that jumped out to me the most was the story about how when he went back, when he got kicked out of that boarding school and he went back to Korea and he was writing poetry, and somehow his poetry ended up in front of some giant Korean star who was making an album with Bobby McFerrin of Don't Worry, Be Happy fame. I went, and I didn't spend a lot of time on this, but I spent a little bit of time trying to find who this was because I couldn't quite hear it in the podcast of who the Korean star was. And so I went looking in Bobby McFerrin's history to see like, okay, when did he collaborate with a Korean pop star to try to validate this fact? And I couldn't find it. And maybe it's that it was sort of misrepresented in the story, like what Bobby McFerrin's role was. But in my copious 5 minutes of research, maybe 3 to 4 minutes of research, I couldn't find that album where this high school dropout, or this kid who got kicked out of a high school suddenly is writing lyrics for this huge artist.
But then gets into Stanford from Korea, even though he's been kicked out of a boarding school in America or Canada. Like, it just, none of it makes sense.
No, I don't. It doesn't make sense.
Also, so this is like tangentially related. When we're talking about like, is this just like some random person says this thing and then it gains traction and then it becomes like something he's hounded by. First of all, my first thought is, did he do it as a way to make himself constantly relevant? But that's like another side to it. Yeah. The other thing is, did you listen to the This American Life episode this week?
No.
Or last week? Okay. So there was one snippet of a story of one of the, what do they call them? One of the acts was about the MSG lie. Do you remember the whole thing that like there's MSG in Chinese food and we shouldn't eat it?
Right.
And basically what they were saying was a letter went out to, I don't know, the New England, whatever, fancy
Journal of Medicine.
Yeah. And someone wrote in basically saying, every time I go to a Chinese restaurant, I have what I call, I think it was Chinese food syndrome or something like that.
Oh, I've heard this story before.
And yes. I put it down to the MSG. And that just gained traction.
And it was all
people started
nonsense.
To say it was to do with studies. It was all nonsense. So the whole This American Life episode is about someone who's like, oh, that was me. So the person signed the letter. So say they signed, it was a man, and it had like the school that he was attached to. So, like had the name and the school that he was attached to. But some like white fella doctor was like, oh no, that was me. And he had told his kids and his family and his friends all growing up that it was him that started it. It was him that started it. And he basically starts this whole thing. But it turns out he was lying all that time. He never started it. The guy who signed the letter was in fact the guy who started it. But it was this idea that this thing happened and it spanned over years and it took a long time for them to get to the bottom of it. But when we're looking at 2010, this is when internet's like speeding up, literally. Yeah. And like it kind of the internet accentuates everything. It speeds it up. It puts it out there. We've seen so much of like the false stories, accusations that go out there. But once they go out there, they stick. It's like that whole thing with the toothpaste. You ever remember being shown that with the toothpaste? If you say something, it's like you squeeze the toothpaste and it comes out easy, but it's not easy to put back in. But the internet like blows that out of the water. Like it's huge. And so I don't know. I'm like, is this story just a startish of the internet story of how this can happen? Like the MSG one was for that demographic of people, but did end up going a bit wild. But curious to see where this goes. I'm skeptical.
Like I feel like we both have sort of a healthy level of skepticism about both this story and this podcast going in. Is that fair to say?
I don't know if mine's healthy.
Okay. We have some type of healthy or unhealthy skepticism. I will say,
if it's what I'm anticipating it to be, I think I'm like, how does it go on for so many episodes?
What I want and what I didn't hear yet, but there were glimmers of, and I don't there wasn't enough to know. I want the host to be asking some hard questions or showing some work outside of just talking to Tablo.
Yeah.
And that hasn't come up yet, but I presume we're just like table setting in episode 1.
So, Jeff, are you eager to keep listening? Like, is this one of those podcasts where you finish the first one and you're like, damn it, I have to talk to Dee before I can listen to the rest? Or are you like, I'm good with my break, thanks?
Yeah, I'm a little in between. I think I'm eager to hear more about this story just because it's like, I feel like we just didn't get enough to really make a judgment on it yet. Like I almost listened to the second episode before now, but then I thought, well, that's cheating. So I stopped myself from doing that, but I just kind of wanted to know, I don't know. I wanted to know,
what's
get a better sense
going
of where this is going. What about you?
Okay. If I was not doing this podcast, I think I would not necessarily be like, I'm not listening to the rest of this, but I think I would forget to listen to the rest of this.
Ooh, that's a new category of things.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? You know, when you're like, okay, I've started this thing and then you get distracted.
I actually think that's a pretty good
description. I'd be distracted.
Well, let's find out.
We would love if you listen to episode 1, jump into the comments, tell us how you feel about it. Tell us if we're totally wrong, if this is where it's at, we should be enjoying this, or have we missed something crucial? Like, is there part of this that we've just completely missed? Did we fall asleep at the most important part of this? Who knows? Let us know. And while you're at us, comment and tell us how you're feeling about the show, our show in general. Find us on Spotify, Instagram, or wherever you get your podcasts. And keep talking. Keep telling people we're here. Come join us. It's a lot of fun.
Next time, was Tablo's story too good to be true?
Or was he the victim of internet conspiracy theorists?
We're discussing all of Authentic, the story of Tablo.
That's on the next So Much Crime.
So Little Time. So Much Crime, So Little Time is a production of Mind Glove Media. The executive producer is Paxton Caloriso. Our associate producer is Blythe Ty. Our theme music was composed by Vyacheslav Starostin. If you haven't done it yet, please subscribe to this show on your podcast app. And don't forget to give us a 5-star rating and a review. Even better, tell your friends. To join the discussion, look for us on social media. Check out the show notes for all the links. Thanks for listening.
I went on a few rants there.